Hello friends. Have you ever met two people who seem to speak entirely different emotional languages, yet somehow finish each other's sentences? That's what happens when Aries the Snake meets Aquarius the Dog, a cosmic dance of fire and air, mystery and logic, instinct and intellect. But can such a pair survive the long road of love, marriage, and life's unpredictable twists? Let's unravel this intricate story layer by layer. After watching, if you'd like to support the channel, click the Thanks button right under this video or use the donation alerts link in the description. Your support really helps me keep creating. And of course, if you enjoy the content, please give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks so much for being here. Now let's continue. Love, the spark and the storm. When Aries Snake meets Aquarius Dog, it's like two elements colliding in a cosmic experiment: fire meeting air, instinct meeting intellect, passion testing reason. The connection doesn't just happen, it bursts into existence with a strange inevitability, as if the universe planned it long before either of them took their first breath. The snake, confident and composed, radiates a magnetic allure that captivates without effort. They walk into a room, and everything seems to shift toward them: eyes, energy, attention. The dog, in contrast, doesn't seek the spotlight, they illuminate it from behind the scenes. Their calm, observant mind reads the world in layers, always searching for meaning, always analyzing motives. When their paths cross, it's not just attraction, it's recognition. Two entirely different operating systems suddenly realize they can sync, but only after 1,000 emotional updates. At first glance, they might not even seem compatible. The Aries Snake moves with a sensual rhythm, a deliberate grace that hides an inner storm. They live through desire, through feeling, through instinct that hums beneath every word. The Aquarius Dog approaches life like a scientist of the soul, curious, abstract, fascinated by humanity but occasionally forgetting to look into one particular pair of eyes long enough to see the person behind the idea. The snake watches the dog's mind wander to distant philosophies and thinks, "Come back to me." The dog observes the snake's intensity and wonders, what drives such hunger for closeness? It begins subtly, a glance held too long, a conversation that spirals from casual banter into metaphysical debate. The snake tests the dog with charm and mystery, weaving a slow hypnotic web. The dog, instead of retreating, leans in, drawn not by seduction but by intrigue. This is what fascinates them: the snake's ability to live so fully, to burn without fear. To the dog, who often watches life from a safe intellectual distance, this level of passion is both terrifying and irresistible. It's like standing near a fire. You know you'll get burned, but the warmth feels like truth. For the snake, the dog is a revelation. Most people they meet either submit to their magnetic force or flee from it. But the dog doesn't do either. They question, they challenge, they meet the snake's intensity with calm reasoning, and somehow that only deepens the snake's desire. The dog's quiet moral strength becomes an anchor, something the snake both respects and wants to shake. It's the first time someone doesn't fall instantly under their spell, and that, paradoxically, makes the dog unforgettable. Their chemistry is both chaotic and poetic. The snake wants to consume, to merge, to dissolve into the connection until nothing else exists. The dog wants to understand, to observe the shape of the emotion before stepping fully into it. This difference creates an intoxicating tension. One seeks possession, the other seeks meaning. Yet, between these two polarities, love starts to bloom, fragile, complicated, utterly alive. The snake's approach to love is primal. They love like it's war and worship at once, strategic but vulnerable, demanding yet generous. They want to be needed, to feel irreplaceable. The Aquarius Dog loves differently, through acceptance, curiosity, and devotion to ideals. They don't chase passion, they nurture connection through shared dreams and honesty. This divergence often leads to friction. The snake may accuse the dog of coldness, mistaking reflection for distance. The dog may see the snake's intensity as suffocation, mistaking passion for control. And yet, when they truly begin to see each other, the storm begins to calm. The snake learns that the dog's aloofness isn't indifference. It's a form of protection, a way of processing emotions that run deeper than they appear. The dog realizes that behind the snake's possessiveness lies fear. Fear of loss, of betrayal, of being invisible in a world that worships detachment. These revelations become turning points. Over time, love between them transforms from friction to flow. The snake begins to breathe, to trust, to allow space without feeling threatened. The dog starts to soften, to risk vulnerability, to show emotion without overanalyzing it. They find that balance doesn't mean sameness, it means harmony. The snake's fire warms the dog's cool logic. The dog's calm air tempers the snake's flame. Still, their journey isn't without turbulence. The dog's independence can trigger the snake's insecurities, while the snake's emotional demands can exhaust the dog's patience. There will be moments of silence, long nights where one waits for a text that doesn't come, or conversations that spiral into misunderstandings. But what saves them is respect. Even in anger, they rarely lose admiration for each other's strengths. The dog still sees the snake as powerful and magnetic. The snake still sees the dog as wise and noble. Their love evolves through cycles: ignition, conflict, revelation, renewal. Each argument becomes a chance to rebuild understanding. Each reconciliation deepens intimacy. Over years, they move from lovers who fight for dominance to partners who fight for balance. They begin to realize that love isn't about fusion, it's about coexistence. There's something profoundly spiritual about their connection. The snake teaches the dog to feel without fear, to dive into emotion without analyzing every ripple. The dog teaches the snake that love doesn't have to be possession, it can be presence, quiet and steadfast. Together, they learn that passion and peace are not opposites but stages of the same heartbeat. Theirs is the kind of love that matures through storms. In youth, it's wildfire, blazing, unpredictable, hungry. With time, it becomes hearth fire, steady, illuminating, eternal. The snake brings intensity, the dog brings endurance. And when both surrender the need to win, they finally learn how to love without conditions. Because love between an Aries snake and an Aquarius dog isn't about finding perfection, it's about creating understanding where none seem possible. It's about two very different souls learning that connection doesn't require similarity, only sincerity. It's about turning friction into firelight, difference into devotion, and storm into serenity. In the end, what binds them isn't chemistry alone, it's evolution. The snake evolves from control to trust, the dog evolves from detachment to devotion. Together, they write a love story that begins in sparks and survives the storm, not because it avoids conflict, but because it grows through it. And that rare transformation, is the quiet miracle of their love. Marriage, building a home between fire and air. Marriage between an Aries snake and an Aquarius dog is not a quiet arrangement, it is an epic, a fusion of contradictions that somehow, against all odds, can become one of the most profound unions imaginable. When fire weds air, the result is unpredictable. Sometimes a warm, life-giving flame that lights the world around it, and sometimes a raging storm that threatens to consume everything in its path. The Aries snake, with its fierce emotional pulse and taste for passion, craves closeness that borders on fusion. They want to live inside the heartbeat of their partner, to feel life through connection. The Aquarius dog, in contrast, views marriage as a partnership of equals, a shared vision built on freedom, respect, and shared ideals rather than control or dependency. To them, love thrives in autonomy, and commitment does not mean ownership, it means mutual evolution. From the outside, their philosophies might appear irreconcilable. The snake, ruled by fire and instinct, hungers for intensity, emotional, physical, even spiritual. They want every day to feel alive with meaning and heat. The dog, ruled by air and intellect, prefers clarity over chaos, peace over passion, and truth over theatrics. But marriage, for them, is not about living in perfect harmony. It is about learning to dance in rhythm even when their beats are different. When these two commit, the world feels it. Their connection radiates power, the kind that draws others in without explanation. Friends often describe them as an unlikely but magnetic couple, the type that debates at dinner parties and still walks home holding hands. The snake's depth mesmerizes the dog, the dog's vision stabilizes the snake. They are each other's counterweight, one grounded in desire, the other lifted by ideals. But this same polarity that attracts them can also become the axis of their greatest challenges. In the early years of marriage, the Aries snake often takes the lead. They plan, they initiate, they protect. They see love as a sacred flame that must be guarded and tended constantly. Their passion gives the marriage a pulse, date nights, surprises, long conversations under dim lights where everything feels cinematic. But beneath that devotion lies vulnerability. The snake fears emotional abandonment more than anything. They can become possessive without realizing it, mistaking care for control. When the Aquarius dog senses this tightening of energy, their instinct is to pull away, not because they don't care, but because they need air to breathe. Their love language is freedom. They need solitude and creative space to feel whole. The snake doesn't always understand this. To them, distance feels like rejection. They might respond with more intensity, calls, questions, subtle demands for reassurance. The dog, feeling cornered, may retreat even further, burying themselves in work, friendships, or causes where they can regain a sense of independence. The home, once full of firelight, can cool into quiet corridors of misunderstanding. But the beauty of this pairing lies in their capacity for awareness. When they truly listen, when they strip away pride and speak from truth, they realize that their differences are not weapons but tools. The snake teaches the dog how to feel, how to drop out of the mind and into the heart, to be present in love instead of observing it from afar. The dog, in turn, teaches the snake how to see, how to zoom out from their own emotions and consider the larger perspective, the long-term picture that passion alone can't sustain. Over time, their marriage evolves into a masterclass in balance. The snake begins to respect the dog's silences, understanding that solitude is not separation but self-renewal. The dog learns that passion is not danger but devotion in another form. They stop trying to change each other and start collaborating, combining sensuality with intellect, emotion with purpose. Their shared life becomes a blend of romance and revolution. They are not just spouses, they are co-architects of a living philosophy. The snake brings beauty into the home, rich textures, sensual rituals, nights filled with candlelight and physical closeness. The dog brings order and inspiration, structure, dreams, a cause bigger than themselves. Together, they build a sanctuary that reflects both passion and purpose. Their home may not be traditional, it's likely filled with books, art, debates, and spontaneous adventures, but it's alive, deeply lived in, and always growing. Still, storms will come. When the snake's intensity rises, as it inevitably does, the dog may find it overwhelming. The dog's instinct to rationalize emotion can irritate the snake, who wants to feel understood, not analyzed. Sometimes, their arguments echo for hours, not because they disagree on facts, but because they speak different emotional languages. The snake says, "You don't care enough." The dog responds, "I'm here, just not in your way." The trick is learning that both are right in their own dialects of love. Communication becomes their compass. When it fails, they drift apart. When it flows, they rediscover each other. The snake, with time, learns to express vulnerability instead of control, to say, "I'm scared of losing you," instead of acting possessive. The dog learns to reassure with emotion rather than logic, to say, "I love you," even when the words feel simple, even unnecessary. This emotional literacy turns their marriage from a survival pact into a sacred dialogue. Their intimacy deepens as understanding grows. The snake's warmth melts the dog's reserved exterior, bringing laughter and sensual playfulness into their shared life. The dog's calm steadiness helps the snake find peace in moments that once felt unbearable. Together, they move through the seasons of marriage like fire and air weaving light, sometimes flaring, sometimes fading, but always illuminating something new about themselves and each other. If they fail to nurture the bond, however, the risk is emotional frost. The same intensity that once drew them together can burn out if one withdraws too far. The snake may start to feel unseen and unloved, turning their pain into resentment. The dog, weary of constant emotional turbulence, may seek serenity elsewhere, in work, ideals, or isolation. Love becomes an echo, not a dialogue. The warmth fades, replaced by cold intellectual coexistence, a marriage that functions but no longer feels. Yet, even in those darkest moments, this pairing has a secret weapon: memory. They remember how powerful it felt to first truly see one another, how their souls recognized something rare and irreplaceable. That memory, like a hidden ember, often brings them back. One heartfelt conversation, one honest night of truth and forgiveness, can reignite what was thought lost. At their best, they are a union of passion and principle, a relationship that proves love doesn't have to choose between emotion and intellect. Their marriage becomes a living metaphor: fire learning to breathe, air learning to burn. The snake grounds the dog's ideals into lived experience, reminding them that philosophy means little without feeling. The dog elevates the snake's desires into meaning, showing that passion can build more than it destroys. In time, they realize that the masterpiece and the battlefield are the same terrain: love itself. It's not about avoiding struggle but mastering it together. The snake stops fearing the dog's freedom. The dog stops fearing the snake's depth. What remains is not perfection, but peace, a mature, enduring love forged in friction and refined by understanding. Their marriage, when truly nurtured, becomes both sanctuary and adventure, a place where sensuality meets soul, passion meets purpose, and two vastly different energies learn to live not despite their contrasts, but because of them. When the fire of Aries Snake finds balance with the air of Aquarius Dog, what they create is nothing short of alchemy, a home that breathes, burns, and endures. Sex, fire beneath the surface. Between an Aries Snake and an Aquarius Dog, physical intimacy isn't merely about contact. It's a psychological, spiritual, and elemental collision that reshapes both participants. It's the secret language they speak when words collapse under the weight of what they feel. The Aries Snake approaches sex like a composer faced with a symphony, deliberate, intuitive, and emotionally fluent. Every touch, every pause, every inhale carries intention. The snake doesn't just want the body, they want the reaction, the spark, the trembling recognition that desire has meaning. They are experts in emotional seduction, reading nuance as easily as breathing, turning silence into rhythm, and using passion as both confession and communion. The Aquarius Dog enters this realm from an entirely different door. They are explorers of the mind before explorers of the flesh. Curiosity, imagination, and experimentation guide them far more than instinct. They see intimacy as an extension of thought, a playground where ideas of connection become physical art. They enjoy discovery of techniques, sensations, boundaries. Yet, for all their openness, they sometimes hover above emotion, analyzing what they feel even as they feel it, a scientist watching their own heartbeat. When these two energies collide, the atmosphere becomes charged, not just romantic but cosmic. The snake's magnetism pulls the dog downward from thought into experience, grounding air into flesh. For the first time, the dog stops observing and starts feeling. In that surrender, they taste something entirely new, vulnerability that feels like liberation. The dog's curiosity, in turn, teases the snake out of repetition. With the dog, the snake cannot rely on pattern or dominance alone. They are invited into playfulness, experimentation, and a kind of mutual invention that surprises even them. Every encounter between them feels like a story with shifting genres, sometimes a drama of slow-burning intensity, sometimes a comedy of exploration, sometimes pure poetry written in movement and breath. The snake seeks depth, the dog seeks expansion. Together they create a spectrum. Passion for them isn't static, it's alive, elastic, constantly redefining itself. Yet beneath that brilliance lies tension as inevitable as gravity. The snake's heart burns for emotional affirmation. They need to feel desired, not just wanted. Sex, to them, is evidence of devotion, proof of connection. If their partner seems distracted or emotionally elsewhere, the snake's confidence cracks, and jealousy seeps through like smoke through silk. The dog, valuing autonomy, might not understand why affection must come with constant reassurance. Their need for mental connection, for distance enough to think and breathe, can be mistaken for coldness. The snake reads that cool detachment as rejection. The dog reads the snake's craving for closeness as pressure. This cycle, if unacknowledged, can corrode the chemistry that once felt divine. The snake's possessive streak can wrap the dog in invisible tension. The dog's withdrawal can freeze the snake's fire into self-doubt. They must learn that control kills magic, and that desire thrives only where freedom still breathes. When they trust each other, however, their intimacy becomes transformative, not merely satisfying but evolutionary. The dog begins to understand that surrender isn't weakness, it's another form of knowing. The snake discovers that dominance isn't necessary to feel secure. Connection built on trust can be even more intoxicating. Sex between them evolves from performance to meditation, from fire that consumes to fire that illuminates. In those rare, balanced moments, their energies merge seamlessly, the snake's intensity shaping the dog's creativity into focused emotion, the dog's imagination giving the snake's passion new dimension. Their lovemaking becomes both ritual and play, a private world where power, tenderness, and curiosity coexist. The bed becomes their laboratory of growth, where they test how far passion can travel when guided by respect instead of fear. Sometimes, after the heat fades, they lie together in a silence that feels like music. The snake traces invisible constellations on the dog's skin, rounding the moment in presence. The dog, usually restless, feels unusually still, their mind soothed by the steady rhythm of shared breath. They realize that what they've created isn't just pleasure. It's a conversation without words, a trust deeper than reason. Of course, sustaining this harmony requires awareness. The snake must resist turning love into territory, and the dog must resist turning intimacy into theory. The secret is remembering that sex, for them, is not a power game but an exchange of energy, a balance of giving and receiving, leading and following, burning and breathing. When they master this balance, the result is extraordinary. Their connection becomes a luminous flame, not a wildfire that destroys, but a hearth that warms and reveals. Through each encounter, they learn new dialects of passion. The snake learns laughter, the dog learns surrender. Together, they discover that desire, when infused with trust, is not fleeting but endlessly renewable. In the end, their sexual bond mirrors the essence of their union, fire and air creating light. It is proof that opposites, when handled with awareness and reverence, don't cancel each other out, they elevate each other. For the Aries Snake and Aquarius Dog, intimacy isn't simply about pleasure, it's about transformation. It's the art of turning instinct into poetry, intellect into emotion, and physical connection into a sacred dance where both finally feel completely, beautifully alive. Friendship, the unlikely bond. When romance is stripped from the equation, when all the flames and jealousies and insecurities of love are set aside, something astonishing happens between the Aries Snake and the Aquarius Dog. They discover a friendship that feels both improbable and inevitable. It's as if the cosmos, knowing how combustible their romantic chemistry could be, designed a gentler stage where they could still meet, one built on respect, curiosity, and mutual fascination. At first, they don't necessarily recognize their potential as friends. The snake, with its sharp perception and instinctive nature, often moves through social circles with quiet observation, choosing companions carefully. They're selective, even suspicious, reading people's motives before investing emotionally. The dog, by contrast, steps into the world with open-hearted idealism. They want to believe in people, in causes, in progress. While the snake asks, what's their angle? The dog asks, what's their dream? These differing filters should clash, yet they form the first thread of balance between them, pragmatism meeting optimism, strategy meeting vision. Their first conversations are electric. The snake tests with wit and irony, while the dog disarms with sincerity and intellect. The snake loves the game of dialogue, reading reactions, uncovering hidden fears and ambitions, dissecting character like an art form. The dog, meanwhile, enjoys exploring concepts that stretch beyond daily life, ethics, technology, human nature, the future. What begins as casual conversation becomes a meeting of two worlds, the tangible and the theoretical. They challenge each other's perspectives in ways neither expected. The snake brings things down to the ground, the dog lifts them back into the sky. Over time, they develop a rhythm that feels like a dance of opposites. The snake teaches the dog subtlety, that not every truth must be shouted to be powerful, that silence can be strategy, that discernment can protect compassion. The dog, in turn, teaches the snake trust, that vulnerability isn't weakness, that not everyone is playing a hidden game, and that loyalty isn't earned through control but through authenticity. They begin to mirror each other's best traits, absorbing what the other lacks. There's an unspoken respect between them. The snake recognizes in the dog a moral clarity that few possess, a rare consistency of principle that isn't naive but deeply courageous. The dog, though they may roll their eyes at the snake's occasional cynicism, secretly admires their composure under pressure, their ability to navigate chaos without losing focus. Where others see the snake as too calculating, the dog sees strategy as artistry. Where others see the dog as too idealistic, the snake sees faith as strength. But no friendship this rich comes without friction. Emotional misunderstandings sometimes lurk beneath the surface. The snake's humor, often laced with subtle irony or provocation, can sometimes wound the sensitive dog, who values sincerity and can mistake teasing for disdain. Meanwhile, the dog's habit of moralizing, their tendency to want to fix or enlighten, can irritate the snake, who dislikes being told what's right or wrong. At moments, the snake withdraws into amused detachment, while the dog simmers with quiet disapproval. The turning point in their friendship usually comes when they weather their first real disagreement. The dog might confront the snake about being too cold or opportunistic, while the snake might accuse the dog of being self-righteous or naive. Tempers flare, words are exchanged, yet underneath the argument lies something more important: honesty. They realize they care enough to be honest, and that realization transforms their dynamic. The snake, who rarely apologizes, might surprise the dog with a quiet admission: "Maybe I was too harsh." The dog, humbled, responds with warmth rather than pride. From that moment on, trust deepens. Their bond grows strongest when anchored to a shared mission. Whether they collaborate on a creative project, a humanitarian effort, or a business venture, their complementary natures make them formidable allies. The snake's strategic thinking ensures that the dream has structure. The dog's integrity guarantees that ambition never outruns ethics. Together, they can build enterprises, movements, or art that carry both brilliance and conscience. The dog inspires the snake to aim higher. The snake reminds the dog to aim smarter. There's also an unspoken telepathy between them. They can sit in silence for hours, in a cafe, on a porch, or in the glow of computer screens, each lost in their own thoughts yet oddly synchronized. The dog's presence calms the snake's restlessness. The snake's quiet intensity steadies the dog's whirlwind of ideas. Their friendship becomes less about constant interaction and more about deep understanding, the kind where weeks of silence don't diminish connection, because the bond is not built on communication alone but on recognition. Still, the snake sometimes wonders if the dog's loyalty extends too widely, to the world, to causes, to everyone but them. They might feel sidelined when the dog's attention drifts toward new crusades or social missions. The dog, on the other hand, may feel uneasy when the snake's attention becomes too laser-focused, when their friendship starts to feel like a game of chess where every move is calculated. To survive, they must remember that their bond thrives not in control or dependency, but in freedom. The dog needs space. The snake needs reassurance that space isn't abandonment. At their best, they balance these needs with grace. The snake offers worldly wisdom that grounds the dog's lofty visions. The dog offers moral courage that softens the snake's skepticism. They may debate endlessly, but beneath every disagreement runs a current of affection. Their conversations, even when heated, never lose a certain sparkle, an awareness that they're lucky to have found someone who understands both their brilliance and their flaws. Over the years, their friendship becomes a quiet constant, a stabilizing presence through other changing relationships. When the dog is disillusioned by people's hypocrisy, the snake listens without judgment, offering perspective instead of pity. When the snake feels detached or cynical, the dog reminds them that hope is not weakness but rebellion. They rejuvenate each other's faith in humanity in different ways. The dog through ideals, the snake through resilience. This unlikely bond defies easy explanation. It's not based on similarity or convenience, but on alchemy, the rare chemistry that emerges when two different kinds of intelligence meet and respect each other's mystery. They are a living paradox. The idealist and the realist, the dreamer and the strategist, the one who sees what could be and the one who knows how to make it happen. Together, they embody the complete equation of human friendship. One part heart, one part mind, both parts necessary. Their connection thrives because it doesn't demand constant validation. It's not dependent on flattery or emotional drama. It exists in a quiet equilibrium. Laughter after deep talks, mutual admiration after disagreement, understanding that transcends explanation. In the end, the friendship between an Aries snake and an Aquarius dog stands as proof that true companionship is not about similarity, it's about evolution. They meet as opposites and grow into mirrors, reflecting each other's hidden strengths. It's a friendship that sharpens, expands, and protects. And when the world feels too noisy, too fast, too unkind, they find in each other a rare sanctuary. A bond where intellect meets intuition, philosophy meets instinct, and loyalty, though sometimes unspoken, runs deep as breath itself. Business and career compatibility. In business, the partnership between an Aries snake and an Aquarius dog isn't just functional, it's electric. It's a rare fusion of strategy and innovation, of instinct and intellect, of precision meeting purpose. When these two step into a shared venture, they bring different weapons to the battlefield of ambition. The snake's sharp, calculating focus and the dog's visionary, principle-driven creativity. One sees the map, the other sees the horizon. Together, they possess the potential to build enterprises that don't just succeed but redefine their industries. The Aries snake enters business like a chess grandmaster entering a tournament. Every move is premeditated, every outcome considered 3 steps ahead. Their mind thrives in complexity. They can manage operations, analyze markets, and anticipate challenges before anyone else notices the air shifting. What drives them isn't mere profit but mastery. They crave to dominate the game by understanding it more deeply than their competitors. The Aquarius dog, however, approaches work as a laboratory for progress. They are the futurist, the dreamer with spreadsheets, the person who believes business should serve humanity as much as the bottom line. Their moral compass always points toward innovation with integrity. At first glance, they seem incompatible. The snake's caution and secrecy appear to clash with the dog's openness and idealism. The dog wants to brainstorm in public, the snake wants to plan behind closed doors. But this tension can become their greatest strength if they learn to see it not as friction but as polarity, two ends of a creative circuit that, when connected, generate enormous energy. The dog imagines what could be, the snake determines how to make it real. The dog ignites ideas, the snake refines them into strategies that actually work. The early phase of their collaboration often feels like an exhilarating tug of war. The dog pitches bold concepts, new markets, social innovations, products that blend ethics and technology. The snake listens, eyes narrowing, calculating feasibility. Sometimes they challenge the dog with uncomfortable realism. It's a beautiful idea, but who's paying for it? The dog, unfazed, counters with faith in human ingenuity. This dynamic, though occasionally heated, sharpens them both. The dog learns pragmatism, the snake rediscovers idealism. Each, in a sense, completes the other. For their partnership to thrive, role clarity is everything. The snake must lead with intuition rather than manipulation, channeling their natural shrewdness into insight, not control. The dog must lead with vision rather than rigidity, staying flexible enough to adapt when reality bends their ideals. When this balance is struck, the results can be remarkable. The snake becomes the tactician, managing timing, negotiation, and resource allocation with precision. The dog becomes the navigator, setting direction, inspiring teams, and ensuring the work aligns with ethical and creative values. It's the perfect yin-yang of enterprise. But when balance slips, cracks appear quickly. The snake's secretive tendencies, born from self-protection, can feel like betrayal to the transparent dog. The dog's insistence on moral purity can feel suffocating to the results-driven snake. Mistrust seeps in like a silent toxin. The dog might accuse the snake of manipulation. The snake might view the dog as naive or self-righteous. What once was synergy becomes stalemate. They must remember that honesty doesn't mean exposure and strategy doesn't mean deceit. Transparency, in their case, is the art of sharing purpose even when methods differ. Communication becomes the currency that sustains them. The dog needs to feel included in the snake's inner workings, not every secret revealed, but motives made clear. The snake, in turn, needs assurance that their discretion is valued, not demonized. Once they learn to exchange trust as deliberately as they exchange ideas, the partnership stabilizes. They begin to operate like two halves of one exceptional executive mind, one watching the future, the other orchestrating the present. In professional settings, their combination often stands out. In meetings, the dog captivates the room with vision. Here's how we can change the world. Then the snake steps in, translating inspiration into logistics. Here's how we can actually do it. Stakeholders see charisma and competence fused together, art and architecture in motion. Their duality makes them magnetic to investors and employees alike because people sense both integrity and direction. Their enterprises tend to have a distinct flavor, not just profitable, but meaningful. Whether they're building a company, managing a nonprofit, or leading a creative agency, they infuse work with a sense of mission. The dog ensures that ethics and humanity remain central. The snake ensures that discipline and profitability are never neglected. Their organizations, when successful, are known for both heart and precision. However, this alliance requires emotional maturity. The snake must resist the temptation to test loyalty through subtle games. The dog must avoid moral superiority when the world demands compromise. Both must learn that leadership is not about dominance but alignment, the act of turning two distinct drives toward a single North Star. When they respect each other's strengths, their business relationship becomes a rare phenomenon, a blend of wisdom and innovation, discipline and imagination. They can transform stagnation into momentum, chaos into clarity. The snake's detail-oriented mind builds the infrastructure. The dog's visionary soul fills it with purpose. They are proof that success isn't born from similarity but from the intelligent fusion of opposites. In the end, the Aries Snake and Aquarius Dog don't just run a business, they create a movement. Their partnership, when built on trust and shared intent, becomes the perfect model for modern leadership, pragmatic yet idealistic, strategic yet humane. They remind the world that true progress happens when intellect listens to intuition, when ambition bows to ethics, and when two vastly different minds decide that collaboration, not competition, is the ultimate strategy for success. Dark sides, the shadows of fire and air. No union is free from shadow, and between the Aries Snake and the Aquarius Dog, darkness is not a stranger but a teacher waiting in the corner of their shared life. Their relationship, so vivid in its highs, carries an equally dramatic depth in its lows. The same fire that warms can scorch. The same air that feeds the flame can also smother it. When these two signs forget balance, their brilliance turns into tension, their strength into stubbornness, and their individuality into isolation. The Aries Snake, brilliant and magnetic, is ruled by an instinct to control. It is not cruelty by nature, but fear disguised as mastery. They love deeply, but love for them can feel like territory, something to guard, to define, to manage. When insecurity seeps into their mind, it doesn't appear as quiet doubt but as subtle strategy. They begin to test the people they love. A delayed reply, a calculated silence, a sharp question delivered with a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. They do it not to hurt but to confirm, to see if loyalty still stands. Yet the irony is cruel. These tests often break the very trust they are meant to prove. In darker moods, the snake can manipulate without realizing it, weaving emotional mazes where they remain the secret center. They believe that to lose control is to lose safety, so they pull invisible strings, keeping everyone, especially the Aquarius Dog, orbiting just close enough to feel their gravity but never far enough to escape. Their jealousy doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, disguising itself as care. "I just want to protect you," they say, when what they mean is, "I'm terrified of being replaced." The Aquarius dog's shadow, by contrast, hides behind virtue. Where the snake's fear seeks control, the dog's fear seeks distance. When hurt, the dog retreats not into anger but into icy superiority. They convince themselves they are merely being rational, when in truth they are building emotional walls as high as ideals. Their moral clarity becomes a weapon, judgment masquerading as wisdom. They may start to lecture instead of listen, to analyze instead of empathize. What once was compassion turns brittle. What once was loyalty becomes conditional. When these two shadows meet, it feels less like a fight and more like winter. The snake feels unloved, sensing the dog's cool detachment as rejection. The dog feels suffocated, sensing the snake's need for control as a threat to freedom. Words become weapons sharpened by intellect and instinct alike. They argue not to understand but to win. Pride replaces tenderness. Silence replaces dialogue. Their home becomes a psychological battlefield, not loud, but tense, full of invisible power plays and emotional withdrawal. The tragedy of this phase is that both partners are driven by the same unspoken fear, the terror of vulnerability. The snake fears exposure, that showing weakness means losing control. The dog fears dependence, that needing someone means losing autonomy. Each hides behind their element. Fire protects itself by burning brighter. Air protects itself by floating higher. The result is distance. The snake tightens the grip. The dog drifts away. Both are lonely, yet neither admits it. Still, within these very shadows lies their greatest potential for growth. The darkness is not punishment, it's a mirror. The snake's jealousy points to the depth of their need to be seen, to be valued beyond performance. The dog's detachment reveals their longing to be safe in connection, to love without losing selfhood. When they dare to look into that mirror together, something begins to shift. For the Aries snake, healing starts with surrender, the hardest lesson for a creature of control. They must learn that love cannot be owned, that closeness cannot be engineered. To release control is not to lose power but to trade it for peace. When they finally let go, when they stop asking for proof of loyalty and start offering trust, they discover a gentler strength, the power to be open without fear. For the Aquarius dog, healing begins with warmth, the courage to re-enter emotion after retreating into logic. They must learn that compassion is not a liability, that showing softness doesn't erode integrity. When they dare to stay present instead of ascending into judgment, when they look at the snake and say, "I see your fear, and I'm still here," something divine unfolds. Their moral clarity evolves into emotional wisdom. Transformation for them does not come from denying their natures but from integrating their opposites. The snake, creature of instinct, learns reflection. The dog, creature of intellect, learns surrender. Together they realize that shadow is not something to fight but to understand, that darkness, when embraced, becomes depth. Their relationship, once a battlefield, turns into an alchemical workshop where control turns into trust and detachment into devotion. It is not an easy process. There are relapses, nights of silence, days of distance, moments when both revert to old armor. But with each reconciliation, they shed another layer of fear. The snake discovers that true loyalty doesn't need constant testing, it reveals itself quietly over time. The dog discovers that moral perfection is a cage, and that love, messy and imperfect, is far more liberating. When they emerge from these cycles, they are changed. The snake's intensity becomes tenderness, a quiet passion grounded in security rather than fear. The dog's rationality becomes empathy, an understanding that love cannot always be logical yet can still be right. Their shadows don't disappear, they become part of the light. In the end, the Aries snake and Aquarius dog realize that their relationship was never meant to be flawless. It was meant to be transformative. The shadows that once divided them become the very glue that binds them, because through each conflict, they learn to love not in spite of imperfection but through it. The snake learns that freedom and trust can coexist, the dog learns that passion and peace are not enemies but partners. Together, they embody the paradox of fire and air, the flame that burns brighter when given space to breathe. Their greatest strength is not avoiding darkness but walking through it hand in hand, two souls who faced their own storms and emerged not purified but whole. Life goals and philosophies. At first glance, the life goals of the Aries Snake and the Aquarius Dog seem to be written in entirely different languages, one of power, the other of principle. The Aries Snake dreams of ascension. They are builders of empires, climbers of invisible ladders, drawn toward mastery like moths to flame. They want to be someone exceptional, unforgettable, influential. Their ambition isn't shallow, it's primal. It burns from the marrow outward, whispering, "You were born to conquer something." The Aquarius Dog, on the other hand, measures success by impact, not by scale. They seek to serve humanity, not command it. Their goals are not carved in gold but written in ideals: fairness, justice, innovation, hope. While the snake wants to make their mark, the dog wants to make a difference. They would rather be respected for their ethics than admired for their power. To the dog, life is a moral experiment, not a competition. To the snake, it is a grand strategy, a symphony of movement and precision. At first, this divergence can feel like a chasm. The snake may view the dog as impractical, wasting their brilliance on unprofitable causes. The dog may see the snake as self-centered, obsessed with prestige and control. Their conversations about purpose often turn into debates: fire against air, ego against idealism. The snake says, "We can't help others if we don't have power." The dog replies, "Power means nothing if it doesn't help others." Yet beneath the argument lies an undeniable truth: both crave meaning, just in different dialects. The alchemy begins when they stop trying to convert each other and start listening. The snake begins to see that the dog's morality isn't weakness but courage, the kind that refuses to compromise even when the world demands it. The dog begins to understand that the snake's ambition isn't greed but devotion, the art of channeling potential into legacy. When these perspectives intertwine, they become something extraordinary. A union where drive meets direction, where vision gains both roots and wings. Together, they can create a life that is not only prosperous but purposeful. The snake gives structure to the dog's dreams, turns vision into systems, ideas into actions. The dog infuses the snake's empire with conscience, ensuring that every success echoes with integrity. One builds the cathedral, the other ensures it has a soul. It's a rare partnership between the architect and the idealist, where every victory serves something greater than ego. Spiritually, they balance each other like night and dawn. The snake, ruled by instinct, learns that true strength doesn't come from control but from trust, the kind of trust that allows vulnerability to exist without fear of destruction. They learn that surrender is not defeat but grace. The dog, guided by intellect and ideals, learns that passion isn't chaos but sacred energy, that emotion, when embraced, doesn't dilute wisdom but deepens it. The dog begins to live less in should and more in feel. The snake begins to love without strategy. Their philosophies evolve through each other. The snake, once devoted to mastery of the world, begins to explore mastery of the self, meditation instead of manipulation, reflection instead of reaction. They learn that legacy without inner peace is hollow. The dog, who once sought salvation in collective goodness, starts recognizing the sanctity of individuality. They understand that saving the world begins with understanding oneself. Over time, their shared life becomes less about external goals and more about alignment, aligning ambition with empathy, wealth with worth, progress with purpose. They might found a company that serves people rather than exploits them, or pursue creative work that challenges social norms while maintaining artistic integrity. They don't just live, they curate life with intention. Their differing rhythms teach each other patience. The snake's intensity helps the dog stay committed when their idealism wavers. The dog's serenity teaches the snake that not every mountain must be climbed today. The snake learns to pause, the dog learns to push. Through each other, they discover the art of sustainable success, the kind that nourishes rather than consumes. Of course, this harmony doesn't come instantly. There are storms. The snake sometimes loses themselves in ambition, chasing recognition until exhaustion replaces joy. The dog, disillusioned by imperfection, can fall into cynicism, preaching idealism while doubting its practicality. When this happens, they remind each other why they started. The snake whispers, "You don't need to fix the world overnight." The dog answers, "And you don't need to conquer it to feel worthy." Those moments of honesty become sacred, the quiet recalibrations that keep their compass true. Their philosophies on love and purpose intertwine as well. To the snake, love becomes an act of purpose. To the dog, purpose becomes an act of love. They learn that fulfillment doesn't come from chasing extremes but from cultivating balance, from understanding that greatness without goodness is sterile, and goodness without courage is incomplete. When they look ahead, their goals begin to merge into a shared horizon. The snake's dream of legacy fuses with the dog's mission of service. They envision a life where success is measured not by applause but by impact, where influence uplifts rather than dominates. Their combined energy has the power to transform communities, inspire movements, or simply nurture a home where integrity and ambition coexist in peace. Spiritually, they come to embody two halves of one truth. The snake represents the power of creation, the force that shapes, builds, and manifests. The dog represents the power of compassion, the force that heals, connects, and uplifts. Together, they live the paradox that the highest achievement is not climbing above others but lifting others with you. In the later chapters of life, their philosophies deepen into wisdom. The snake, who once chased immortality through achievement, begins to find it in influence, in how they've changed lives, not just led them. The dog, who once sought perfection in humanity, finds peace in its imperfection, realizing that every act of kindness, no matter how small, ripples endlessly. Ultimately, the Aries Snake and Aquarius Dog create a shared philosophy that transcends the boundaries of ego and idealism. They believe in living deliberately, with passion, purpose, and compassion woven into every decision. Their goals are no longer separate pursuits but two voices singing the same melody: to rise and to serve, to lead and to love, to master the world without losing the soul. Their life together becomes a quiet revolution, proof that when ambition and altruism learn to dance, the world doesn't just change around them, it changes through them. And perhaps that is their greatest legacy, not what they achieve, but how beautifully they learn to align power with purpose, fire with air, and destiny with meaning. Final conclusions. A love that evolves. So, can the Aries Snake and Aquarius Dog truly last? The answer is yes, but not without self-awareness and emotional maturity. Their compatibility is like a rare wine, complex, intense, sometimes challenging, but deeply rewarding if allowed to mature. This pairing teaches both partners profound lessons. The snake learns freedom isn't a threat, it's a gift. The dog learns that passion isn't chaos, it's connection. Together, they discover that love isn't about ownership or independence, it's about evolution. Their story isn't one of easy harmony but of transformative growth. It's not a fairy tale, it's a spiritual journey disguised as a romance. And if they can walk that path side by side, respecting their differences while embracing their shared dreams, they'll not only make it work, they'll redefine what love can truly mean.